This just in, Brother the Man is back with another show, back to back weeks. Can you believe it? We've got another guest, lots to talk about, and also the 49ers are going to beat the Dolphins' ass tomorrow. But let's get to this next Brother the Man show starting now.
So the Dolphins and the 49ers.
That's right.
The Dolphins are not a team, so you're probably correct.
They got a win. The Dolphins have a win. The Niners are coming off of a lot of injuries, but this isn't about the team. This is about me versus you, the Niners fan versus the Dolphins fan, and we're gonna whoop you guys' ass tomorrow.
And I'm telling
No
you that
mercy.
the debate is over. You won. Congratulations.
The game. That's but no. The games are played on the field, not on paper.
Presuming you guys don't catch a whole shit ton of COVID, we should probably just call this game over. The Dolphins are not playing any kind of football.
Well,
And
but
San Francisco's having a great season, all things considered.
well, it's okay. I mean, a lot of injuries. I didn't like the Sunday night game, but you know what? It is what it is. No excuses. Should be an interesting game tomorrow. Niners favored by 9. Jimmy Garoppolo is back. But anyway, you know who else is back?
No, I don't have a clue who's back. Who's back?
Well, we're back for a second week in a row
We
after last
did.
week's history-making show.
Yes, that
Hmm.
no one listened to. They couldn't hear it. Yes, but we have another guest, and we took a month off. We didn't mean to. We said we would do it more frequently. We're not at 7 days. We're at 8 days, but basically the next weekend we're going to record, we're going to post, and we're going to get out of the weekend with something to show for ourselves.
But the thing about it is this. The important thing is we're doing stuff. We did our 10th show. This is our 11th show of
11th
this
episode.
season.
Yes.
11th episode. So we are making it happen. We're making it happen more frequently than we did before. So I'm proud of how far we have come despite a lot of challenges. But
I agree
speaking
100%.
of, but speaking of challenges and speaking of being back, should we welcome him on?
You want to bring him in?
Let's bring him in.
Okay.
Oh wait, look who it is.
Go
I was
Pack, go!
expecting. I was expecting somebody else. What's up, man? How's it
How's
going?
it going? It's good, good to be back.
So
Awesome.
Green Bay's having an excellent season so far.
I think Aaron Rodgers is having an excellent season. Is probably a more accurate statement. But
Yeah, he is. And honestly, and people thought I was joking. They were trying to hate. And you're our resident Packer expert, since you're the only Packer person that's come on the show. I think the reason why Aaron Rodgers looks more legitimate this year, last year I didn't buy the Packers, even with a 13-3 record, as a legitimate Super Bowl threat because there were too many holes. This year, I think Aaron Rodgers looks dominant. Like Aaron Rodgers hasn't looked this good in years. And I think it's because, and I am not hating right here, it's because he broke up with Danica Patrick. And the last few years, Aaron Rodgers has always been in a relationship when the season has started. And I think what happened is he was like, no, no women. I'm going to focus on football. I'm 37 years old. I need to win another championship. Bitches got to go.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's definitely working out. So hopefully, he stays
Hmm.
single.
Right. Hopefully he stays single. But well, no, no, no. He needs to get back with someone so the Niners can, tax him again and go to the Super Bowl and win it this year.
He can have some fun in the off season. It'll be all right.
So somebody in the background's not happy.
Okay? It's always that time when it's bedtime. It's the same conversation I have every day. But I'm not going to get into that right now.
No, it's all right. We all have kids. I think, look, again, internet, this is for us, not for you. So if you don't like it, don't watch it. All three of you. I went back to our original episode and it's been viewed like 4 times.
Well, one of those 3 is a guest this week. So
So anyway, should we get into the show?
Should we talk about what we're drinking?
Well, yeah, well, we should talk about what you're. I was so eager to get into the show because I'm so massively unprepared that people are going to see the brilliance of what I do without any preparation. But, I did prepare my drink. I am having Gentleman Jack tonight.
Gentleman Jack. So you took the boring way out. What do you got, Jeff? I'll go last.
I have an Arnold Palmer. I've got some sweet tea vodka and lemonade. It's delicious.
It's not an Arnold Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a spiked Arnold Palmer.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's also known as a Long Island iced tea, right?
No, they're
very,
different.
very close to it.
Similar.
All right. So, creamy, brown, just like here.
That's right.
5 Farms Irish cream. This is Up Jump Bailey's. It's made in Ireland. They take Irish blended whiskey and cream from 5 Farms in Shannon, Ireland, and or Cork actually, and they make that in Ireland. They import it. It's the Up Jumped high scale version of Bailey's Irish cream, and I'm drinking it neat. So
before we begin, I want to say I got a bone to pick with you, man. I got a bone to pick with you, but you probably saved my life at the same time. So my bone to pick with you, you probably can't even guess what it is. It has to do with last week's show and how you forgot to hit the record button. And I said some pretty magical stuff, especially that bit about when I made the analogy about Trump's, stand by and stand back and stand by. I made a great analogy, and that did not get on the show, and it was awesome. So I'm mad that you didn't record that because you forgot. But at the same time, some people can't take a joke or they don't really see the brilliance of the analogies I make. So you probably saved my life. So I hate you, but I love you.
So you're going to repeat it right now?
Yeah. So number one. Technical issues will happen if you guys put any. Well, not. We'll leave Jeff out of it. If you put any effort into the show, then you could be partially to blame as well. Since I do all the work, then I get all the passes. Okay. Number 2, we're not passionate tonight, so let's discuss it. Go ahead, discuss it with us. Tell us what you thought.
No,
Paraphrase it in a calm way that's a little more tactful, then you won't get in trouble.
Well, I only said that imagine if I had cheated on my wife with Susie Rotten Crotch, and my wife tells me like, "Hey, Susie Rotten Crotch is in your phone. You need to stop talking to her right now. You call her up and tell her the affair is over." What if I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Susie Rotten Crotch, stand by or stand back and stand by on this affair," right? That's not definitively ending your affair, right? And that's pretty much what the president did when he told the Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. That's the only analogy I made. I thought it was a great analogy to put it in perspective, but people are going to go back to their corners and have their perspective all they want anyway.
I do recall that, and I did think that was pretty creative and wise. Yes. So, a lot of people talked about that comment and said, he didn't mean it. He was flustered. His tongue doesn't keep up with his ass. But no, we've often said that there are certain things that certain people say, and when they say them, they don't mean to. How do I say this? When someone says something they don't mean to have heard, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not still part of their vernaculars, right? So when Michael Richards, is that his name, said the N-bomb so long ago, a decade ago, that's not a word that would fly out of my face in a moment of passion because it's not something that I say. There's something to that. When Mel Gibson says the stuff he says when he's drunk, well, it's because he probably has it in him to say it when he's sober, but he thinks it's safe. So when Donald Trump says, he's being confronted by an obvious group, he either believes what he said or he's trying really hard not to piss them off and have them walk away from him. But in either case, he's kind of drawn his line. Hey, white supremacists, people that hate the Black Lives Movement matter, people who are against protests and against political conversation and want to use violence to suppress it. What do you say to those guys? Well, I don't know. Stand by. Will you disavow the concept of a contested election? Will you accept the verdict of the people that you claim that you love if they vote you out? I'm not doing anything along those lines. We'll see what happens. So this is who we have for president, and it's been a bit of a shit show since because he's had COVID. He's gone in, he's come out, and he has been some sort of wackadoodle. I mean, you think it can't get any worse, and then it keeps getting worse. So I don't know. if the audio is bad, we'll just have to figure out what it is.
All right.
Okay. All right. So we took a little break there. We had some technical issues. We're going to have to fly with them because it is what it is. But it kind of did set up our first subject. So Jeff is a generation younger. He's not, he doesn't live in a political world, maybe as much as I do. Some say he's either uninformed, unintelligent, or unaware. But I mean, he's not informed on some things. He said that as much. He has some opinions. He is the one follower we have that listens to the show. So I thought that we would see what his take on politics is, and I hope I spelled that right.
Close enough.
What, Weffy or politics? Which one are you wondering if you
Politics.
spell right?
Politics doesn't look right to me, but I'm not good at spelling, so
Well, you didn't do it with a K, so we know Russians haven't taken over us, so you're good.
the backwards K.
Right. Yeah.
So I got a message. So since we've recorded last, to set this table, the Emperor Oompa Loompa has come out of the hospital and made some deranged statements and had some weird speeches. He did a rambling interview where he dropped the F-bomb on the Iranians, on Rush Limbaugh, and Rush had to cut him off. I mean, it's really, really, really surreal that this guy's president of the United States. Nancy Pelosi has entered in a meaningless amendment or beginning of a process to invoke the 25th Amendment to see if maybe he needs to be removed. That's never going to go anywhere. That's political drama for the sake of drama. And I think it's stupid because all it's going to do is excite his base. That was a mistake on her part. Unless she really believes that. And she should be doing something else. She should be calling Vice President Pence to say, this guy's wackadoodle, can we get rid of him? But, whatever. It is what it is. But they also had the vice presidential debate. So Kamala Harris sat across from Mike Pence. They were much more tactful. They had a debate that was worth having, for better or for worse, whether you liked it or not. All of those things are debatable, but at least it was a real debate. And now the second debate, because he has COVID and is probably still shedding virus, but refuses to act like it, they said it had to be virtual, and he said no, so they've canceled the second debate. At this point, I don't think there'll be any more debates. At this point, I think that the campaigning is over. I think it's commercials and name-calling until we get to Election Day. But we still have 3 weeks, so who's to say? And we'll be with you here every week, and we'll go from there.
My ballot came in the mail today too, so it's on.
There you go.
I ordered my absentee ballots earlier this week. Everybody should vote. They say every 4 years, every 2 years, this is the election that's going to change your life, and this is the election of our lifetime. This is the election of our lifetime. I've never, in reading history, at least until the 60s, there's nothing been so important and divisive and decisive all at the same time. But that's the future. We're going to talk about the last couple of weeks, because when the debate happened, I posted something on Twitter about screw Biden, who I'm not a huge fan of. I think that he's okay and he's respectful, but I think he's old and he's lost a step. Screw Biden. I want Kamala Harris. Let's do Kamala and Biden instead of Biden Harris. Harris Biden 2020. And I just posted that as a joke, as a hashtag. And Jeff called me out 2 times in 2 minutes. So, but what we haven't done is gotten into exactly, he's like, look, I'm voting for Biden in spite of Harris. I like Harris, all things being equal. So let's get into this. Let's talk about what you think about the whole situation. You can talk about anything you want that's relative to this.
So I guess let's go back to the debates first of all. 'Cause last week you guys were talking about how you thought Trump might have came out ahead, or at least part of what I heard. I went the opposite. I actually thought Biden just demolished him just by being the adult in the room. That was all I was looking for from him. Because basically what you guys kept saying is Trump's base is going to be his no matter what. And I agree with that. So I think if Trump gets up there and looks like an asshole, when the whole COVID thing came out, I was about 50-50 on whether or not Trump actually had it or whether or not his party just didn't want him to have to debate again because he looked like such a jackass. So that's kind of where I was at on that whole thing. At this point, like I said, with all the all the treatments he got and the way he's been looking since then, I do think he probably legitimately had it at this point. But anyway, so that was the first thing. I don't know if you guys have anything to say to that, or if I can just move on
I
from there.
I've
Go ahead.
heard that from a couple of people that they weren't sure. I thought he had it because the reason why I did is Trump is very careful about his image of looking weak, and a lot of people, when you talk to them, especially on the right side of the aisle, they kind of view if you get COVID as like, oh, you're weak, you got COVID, sheeple, you mask and all. So
Mm.
I legitimately felt that he had COVID because I don't think he would have come out and said he had it unless he absolutely had it. So no, I think that's the one time that he was actually telling the truth.
Well, so I mean, a lot of people went to the hospital. A lot of people got sick to cover up his little conspiracy, if it was that. Chris Christie just was released today. He was in there for a week. That's a bit touch and go. So I don't think this is fake or false. I actually predicted that Biden would pull the same kind of trick, but I don't think that's a joke that you play. A lot of celebrities have gotten caught pretending that they had COVID, and then people say, "Where's the proof?" Well, I had the symptoms and I isolated and it got better. I didn't see a doctor, whatever. I think it was kind of the thing to have happen to you over the spring and summer. Today, man, people are dying, people are catching bodies, and this is divisive. It is dangerous. So I don't think anybody's going to fake that. I think he had it. I think he's recovering from it. I think that he got some very aggressive treatments. I was doom and gloom and predicting bad things for him on the last episode, and I'm glad I was wrong because I don't want the president to die in office. I don't want anybody to suffer from painful things. I want him to go away in a peaceful way. I hope he goes out to a farm somewhere and plays in the daffodils. I don't want him to be my president. I don't want to deal with him as a person, but I don't want anybody to die. Moving past COVID, Jeff, what else you got?
Yep. So moving forward, Kamala was the other big thing. The main, I guess, comparison I wanted to make with at least how I see her. You guys are talking last week about Hillary specifically, how she came off as very self-serving. Thought it was a big reason why she lost. I get that same vibe from her, and again, a lot of that. Except I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on her. I get the same thing we talked about last time I was on, going back to her record, trying to keep evidence out of courts to protect her record. I think she's out for herself, which, I mean, to be in politics, I think you kind of have to be. But I get a very similar vibe from her as I did from Hillary, maybe to a lesser extent. And again, it's not going to stop me from voting Biden by any means, but I'm definitely voting Biden. I'm not voting her. Like if he is a one-term president and it comes in, next time, if it's Kamala against like a Mitt Romney or something like that, I'm voting Mitt. It's going to be a really
Well,
hard.
I talked about the idea of Mitt running in 4 years. He's positioning himself to be the post Trump Republican on the rational side. And Pierre pointed out that he's going to be ancient, and I said, no, he's not that old. Yeah, he's old. He's that old. He's Biden's age. He's in his mid 70s. So I don't know that Biden, or I don't think that Mitt is the guy. I think Mitt wants to be in politics. He wants to serve. And I think the guy has he may be one of the few people that is legitimately interested in doing the right thing in politics.
Yeah.
He may be, he might be a genuine guy in the same way that, I think Bernie is. He thinks he believes what he says, and he thinks it's the right thing to do, and he's passionate about pursuing it.
But I agree with her with what you're saying about him being too old. I don't think he'll run either, but that's the point I'm at with her. Even someone that old running, if being genuine, I would vote for that before I would vote for her on a ticket.
So, Pierre, you watched the debate. What did you think? The vice presidential debate.
So here's what I felt. I felt Kamala Harris was very Attorney General-esque watching it because she had Pence. It seemed like Pence was on the defensive all night. In a way, she was attacking, but it didn't come off like she was attacking. But if you really listen to what she was saying, she was attacking pretty good. I think she's definitely setting herself up for, in case Biden loses this election, I'm going to make a stronger presidential run. I felt she accounted herself better in this debate than what she did in the primaries, where she let Tulsi Gabbard get under her skin, and that like unraveled in one debate. That unraveled her
Yeah,
entire campaign.
that ended her campaign.
It did. And so she didn't handle that well at all. And so she actually handled things a lot better um, for the vice presidential debate. And maybe because it wasn't as many candidates, maybe it's because, like, at the time that she was in that debate where Tulsi got under her skin, she was seen as a front runner because she did so well in the first debate. Maybe that's why she accounted herself differently this time. I think she's definitely setting herself up for another stronger presidential run. I think she did, taking away the historical aspect of things. Let's throw that out for a moment. We'll get to that in a second. If I'm looking at her as a candidate, I thought she did very well as far as what she was explaining. There are a lot of things that went left unanswered, but I think both of them did that night. But I think in terms of Kamala Harris, she knows how to massage the words. She knows how to get around giving a direct answer, and when she needs to attack, she will attack. And I think she hammered Pence pretty good on the whole coronavirus response, and there was nothing he could do for that, and it was legitimate. And I think that's something a lot of people were looking for. So she did a very good job from the historical standpoint, and probably what her strategy going in. She didn't want to be seen as the angry black woman, so she didn't jump on him like she probably could.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think she did a very good job. I think she's definitely setting herself up for a presidential run in case they lose this election, or if Biden is a one-term president, or he has a step down because of health reasons, because he is 77, going to be 78 here soon. So I think that debate did a few things for her from what she was trying to set up, and I guess get people to see her as like, hey, I can be a president for you. Here's how I'm going to represent myself. So,
So,
I think she did a good job.
so I had a two-part take on this. So the night of, I was texting Pierre and I said I wanted her to be attorney general. I wanted her to go after Pence and make the case and cross-examine him and really pin him down. And she didn't do that. And he did that to her to a certain degree. He really pushed her on the question of, are you going to pack the courts or not? And she couldn't answer that. She's not going to answer that. But they both evaded questions that strategically you don't want to be on record as saying a negative answer to. That's always the case in politics. And I watched it with my wife, and she was frustrated that questions weren't being answered, and people were. The moderator may as well not be there anymore. She asked a question and goes, "Thank you for asking that. I'm going to talk about something entirely different for more than the amount of time you're going to allot me." But I thought that she did a fair job of debating. She pointed out things that he didn't need to have pointed out. I don't think it moved a needle at all. Pence looked good from the filter of Trump, the Trump world. Nobody's going to abandon ship. He didn't move the needle in their direction. In that, I don't think he picked anybody up. She looked fine, and she made some points. The reason I was bigger on her, the reason I posted Harris Biden instead of Biden Harris, is because she was articulate and calm and looked, for lack of a better term, presidential, when Biden didn't. Biden got frustrated. I've heard a million versions of that first debate. Jeff, you pointed out that we were saying that Trump won from a certain perspective. The only reason we say that was because he ran the gambit on controlling the debate. It was his debate. He didn't win in any way that is meaningful, right? He didn't win over voters. He didn't win any points. He didn't win in an intellectual way or an emotional way. But he did stop Biden from scoring many punches by being a bully. So
really?
That's why we say he controlled the stage. He controlled the tempo.
Is really just saying you're wrong and that's not true over and over again controlling it though? Or I don't know. I just like I said earlier, I really think all that did was make him look like a jackass.
Jeff,
And actually, I have a question to you, Jeff, on that, because I think I see where this is going a little bit. And I want to ask you, just based off the type of voter that I think you are, where it's like, okay, I'm going to listen to what people have to say. I'm not going to, I'm going to filter out what I'm being told by the news, or what I'm being told by Pierre, what I'm told by Andy. I want to listen to what they have to say. When you hear So I pretty much know how you feel about how Trump handled things with how he was during the debate. When you hear what you heard with both with the vice president and the vice presidential candidate, when you hear them post not actually answer questions, when you hear them say like, I understand you're asking that question, but I want to go back to this one real quick and just get my point out and take up the moderator's time, take up their time. You as that type of voter or that someone that's looking for some answers, how do you feel about that? What do you think?
Honestly, at that point, I just check out. Like I'm really not a big fan of the debates in general. I don't think they really accomplish anything. Like when I'm voting, I'm looking at basically their policies and what they're saying I'm going to do. How well you argue, especially going to the presidential one against someone like Trump. How well you deal with him on stage. That doesn't do anything for me as far as running the country. It doesn't move the needle for me at all.
And that goes back to my point, which is that, you know, make a point to me, Jeff. Convince me that the sky is blue. Just give me an
Look up.
argument. Go ahead, convince me. Notice that you can't be heard because I put you on mute. My point is that if you do a full court press against Biden, you stop Biden from making statements. You stop Biden from landing punches. The elections debates don't change elections in most cases, historically speaking, but they can make a difference if you land a stinger. There's any number of stingers that I've heard in my lifetime. Reagan told somebody that was a fellow Republican in an early primary debate, would you just shut up with that? And he looked presidential, and people went, oh, this is the guy. They started taking him seriously. You don't want Biden to score some sort of gotcha on Trump. And Trump stopped him by doing that because he shut him down. So that was effective. And that's why I'm saying in a fight for space, a fight for time, a fight for air in the room, Trump won that in the first debate.
I think that mattered more pre-internet. I think now when I can just go into Google and type in Trump policy, Biden policies, and see what their running platform is, I can find all that out on my own. I don't need them to tell me. That's why for me the debate really doesn't do anything.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I think that Biden did win. And I think that a week later, we can see that evidence as polls are taken and spins are done. Trump looked like an idiot, but
especially after he came down with COVID afterwards, when he's chastising the man about wearing a mask.
Right. So, but to go back to our original question, I think that like I said, the vice presidential debate was much more tactful, and both people looked much more presidential from the perspective of being able to have a cognizant conversation and be rational. I've said all along for 4 years, I'm not a big fan of Pence's stance. I think they're ultra conservative and they're far too religiously based, but I would much prefer that guy be president than Trump, because at least he's rational. He's not going to go crazy. He's not going to, I don't know that Trump is not going to run down in his bathrobe and hit the nuclear button because somebody tweeted something wrong, right? Pence isn't going to do that. Most people aren't going to do that, but Trump is wackadoodle crazy. So, that would be a change I would be more than willing to accept.
As a hypothetical, I'll let you finish your point, but then after that, do you think it would be any different, Kamala versus Trump is Biden versus Trump? It'd be even more of a shouting match at that point, right? Because she's just going to try and yell over him. Like I don't see how that's any better. I don't think she looks presidential against Trump. I think anyone against Trump, you're not going to look presidential.
So
it's just listening to him ramble the whole time.
Part of my answer is going to, because I'm getting to a second part of my analysis during the show. So during the debate, I wanted her to be the Attorney General of California. I wanted her to come out and to be a prosecutor and prosecute them, and she did not do so. But someone that I very much respect and is a female pointed out something to me, and you mentioned that Tulsi Gabbard got under her skin and made her look like the typical wackadoodle, the crazy woman. Oh, look, the woman. You can't come across as a bitch in politics. So this woman pointed out to me that she thought she did an amazing job because as a woman and a person of color, there are all these gotchas that go with those, right? The angry black woman, the angry woman, the crazy woman. And she did not give them any leads or any strings to pull like that. She did not give them a single commercial that they could make that showed her as being anything other than a human being who was thoughtful and deliberate. She stayed calm. She didn't let Pence get under her skin. She didn't try to go land any punches. So I thought that she did a really good job in that sense. And so I think it was a win for them. Did it move the needle? Again, I don't think the needle is going to move at all at this point in the election. I think that the entire election comes down to convincing people that are young and people that are black and people that are Mexican to go out and vote and not vote, because it's only a matter of how many people on the left can get turned out. That's the entire equation. There's no undecideds, I don't think, hardly. And I think most of those that do exist are going to just walk away. But I do think that if Kamala Harris could be her real self and she went against Trump, I don't know that he wouldn't still suck all the oxygen out of the stage, but she would have had a better showing, because I'm not wise, I'm not intelligent, and I'm not as informed. These people practice, they live in this world, and they're way more informed than Pierre and I ever could be with any show prep, because this is all they do and think about, and they're smarter than us. And I think that if I can out debate Trump, he was saying things that I had zingers ready off the top of my head that would have put him in his place. She would have done way better if she was allowed. I think Biden is not capable of doing that because I think he's old. I think that you lose a step when you get over 60, 65, 70. And I've had old people that age tell me that I very much respect. I'm not as sharp as I used to be, and this guy wants to run the country. That's okay, because you delegate all the big decisions and you make the biggest decisions thoughtfully over time. You don't have to be rapidly fast and sharp, but she would have been in a debate with Trump. It's not going to happen. It's a mute point. It's an academic question.
It would have. It is academic. It would have been interesting. I think that probably in some ways may have given that commercial that you're talking about. I personally would have been. I personally would have been okay with, like, that. Doesn't bother me. I know it bothers people how women may come off if they're like more what's the word I'm looking
Assertive?
for? Assertive. Thank you. If they're more assertive, that's never bothered me because of how I was raised. It's how my mother is. It's how my wife is. So something like that would never bother me. And I guess I get the country isn't quite ready for that, but that would have been an interesting debate. I think you would have seen Trump do more than what he did to Biden, because I think he would have known that was coming, and he would have tried to suck all the air out the room, because he does not want a prosecutor, for lack of a better term, actually shining the light on him and hitting him the way that she probably would have. But
Yeah, I think he would have just started shouting over. I think that's part of why he won't do the online debates, because they can mute him, which I think they should do
Well, he's
anyway.
kind of
Yes.
much.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I think that's the only way you could actually debate him, is if they can mute his mic. Otherwise, he's just going to keep talking over you and try and turn it into a shouting match. Anytime you try and make a good point, he'll just
And
start yelling.
I'm okay with that. I said early on that Biden shouldn't debate him in the first place. He did the right thing, and he tried, and now he's got a reason not to do so. And at this point, Biden's entire game is to coast. He should just sit back and not do anything stupid, because nobody's voting for him because they love Biden. Everything is voting for him. Almost everybody's voting for him because he's a default. He's Obama Jr., and he's not Trump. It's a, do you like Trump or are you voting against Trump thing. Black Lives Matter isn't infatuated with him. Bernie people aren't infatuated with him. Moderates aren't infatuated with him. Nobody knows what really is going to happen. There's all kinds of things that people are upset about, but Trump is dangerous. And I think that the entire thing is, look, let's all agree to disagree. Let's all bury our questions and our arguments until after the election. Let's get somebody in there who's a grown-up and who isn't going to do anything decision. Then we can have a polite conversation about to what degree we should or shouldn't defund police and those kinds of things, any number of questions. But the Supreme Court is a real thing, and Trump being in charge for 4 more years and having nothing, one of the questions is, does he somehow check himself because there's an election coming? Most people in their second term do what they really want to do because they have nothing to lose. I don't want Trump to have that kind of mindset. So, again, it's do we want Trump or do we not want Trump? 35, 40%, 43% of the country wants Trump, and they're going to all vote. The question is, can we get enough people of color in South Carolina, North Carolina, name 10 states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, Arizona, to come out and vote where they didn't before, Michigan, Minnesota, and get this guy out of office. If they
Well,
don't, they won't. If
it
they
is
do, he's gone.
it is concerning, especially when and this is why like I've gotten away from Facebook a little bit more and more during the political season because everybody wants to you get all types of people shouting, I'm not gonna vote. I'm
Oh,
not gonna do this. I don't like this. And it's like it's frustrating to me as a person because I think as you guys know, I'm one of those folks that's like, look, you can't complain if you don't participate in a process. If you forfeited your right to make a decision, whether we're going out to dinner and we're trying to decide we're going to IHOP or Red Lobster or whatever. If you, Jeff, decide like, well, you guys just pick what you want, I'm not going to participate. Well, I want IHOP. You don't get to complain when we go because you forfeited your right. And that's how I feel about politics. And I am tired of hearing people, I don't like any other candidates. I'm probably not going to vote. My vote, I like that is like mind boggling to me. And I guess that's just my issue with human beings as a whole. It's like pretty much all you want is the right to complain. You're not adding anything of value. If I vote and my candidate loses, well, okay, fine. I get the right to complain, but my candidate lost, right? But at least I participated in the process. If you're
Yep.
not going to participate in the process, just leave.
Shaquille O'Neal's my age. He's 48, and he is part of a campaign to get out and vote. You've got to vote. You can't not vote. And he said he voted for the first time in his entire life in this election. He's voted by mail. So that is shocking and interesting. But I think it's a trend. I think that look, and you can see it on Twitter.
Right.
I think that as much as people that are children and many young people are still not going to vote, or they're going to go vote for some write-in candidate or whatever. But I think more of them are going to vote for Biden, and they're going to hold their nose and do it. I think black people are going to shock us by how much they vote. And I bet you that there's some Obama commercials coming that speak to exactly that point. And you can see it on Black Twitter, which is an amazing resource for these. It is because it's the single greatest way to get a tap into a culture that you don't have any direct exposure to. It's
I
very
am
informative to me. Let's put it that way.
I am laughing at the fact that you follow Black Twitter more than I do.
Look, when Michael Brown was happening,
Mhm,
I knew exactly what was happening because
mhm.
it's not hard to find if you are willing to do some research. And
Right.
a lot of it is stupid and ignorant. A lot of people that post there probably wouldn't like us. It definitely wouldn't like me, but that's okay. I'm interested in what they're saying and what the zeitgeist in that community is, and you could get a sense of that. So we have I think. Do you have anything else, Jeff, or did we air our dirty laundry?
no, I think that was about it. The only thing I think it's the only thing I would say, just to respond to what you just said about holding their nose and voting for Biden. That's what I did for Hillary last time. I feel better about voting for Biden than I did for her, and it's not a woman thing. It's like I said, I married a poli-sci major that's way smarter than me and bosses me around. I love it.
We want to
But
get her on the show. She was behind
Yeah.
you 5
Yeah.
minutes ago.
she was.
Bring her on the camera and have her explain to
I
me
can
why.
probably flag her down.
All right, so we want her on the show. We want her on the show next week.
We can make that happen.
Yeah, well, we should, and we like her better than you also. And
I
she's more
believe it.
attractive. Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, and that's
You guys are
why
the reason I married her.
That's
Christmas
why you're
party.
wrong. You should not be mentioning how attractive a woman is. You're dismissing her. She has value outside of her physical appeal or lack thereof.
Dead
You
ass
should be
dope.
ashamed of yourself, Jeff. Now, the person that that pointed out to me how remarkable Kamala Harris's performance was, given the fact that she has to get past all of the obstacles that a woman has to deal with, and a black person has to deal with, or a woman of color, whatever you want to call it. See, I'm oblivious to those. I'm naive in those things because I was raised right in the
Well, I've been
military
trying
family.
to educate you on this for years.
I get it, and I'm
Ever since
aware
we
of them.
met. Ever since
I'm
we
aware-
met. But you
Am
didn't
I-
listen to your boy. You listened to everybody else.
No,
Have
no,
I
no,
ever
no,
led
no.
you wrong?
No. Because number one, and number two and number three. Okay. Am I not more aware than most white people that you know of these kinds of things relative to the black-white axis?
Well, I don't know. Rachel Dolezal, she more down than. No, just kidding. No,
Yeah,
I'm
she's
joking with
down with the
you.
ginger.
No.
But I don't think of these things because I just assume that all black and white people are the same and all women and men should be treated the same. So it's not in my heart, and I can see it when I'm rationalizing and analyzing, but it's not something that typically comes to the top of my head. Just like I don't think that gay people and straight people are different and need to be acting differently or reacted to differently because I don't see gay people. I don't see women as being different in that sense. I think a woman can do almost any job that a man can do, and the only differences are somewhat physical. Firefighters, okay, that's a real thing. You don't see a lot of women playing football because it's a physical thing. But I think that a woman is every bit as being rational and intellectual and capable. My boss is a woman, and so it just doesn't occur to me that should be something that you have to worry about as a female, to worry about how you come across in a larger male world. But she does. It's a real thing. I get it. That's fine. I hate Hillary Clinton. I've made no bones about that. I think that she's superficial. She's gone, so I shouldn't hate on her, but I didn't like her as a candidate. Okay. Bill is leaving office, and they buy a house in New York so she can move to New York and run for Senate as a senator from New York. She's never been there. The people of New York picked her because, I guess, name recognition. I don't know, or they recognize some sort of capability. I don't know why they picked her, but the chutzpah of I'm going to move to a state and be their senator and saying that's what I'm going to do. I have no interest in running for president, knowing fully well she's going to run 4 years later, is a joke. So that's Hillary Clinton. And she is prone to being a terrible, terrible person. And she ran the worst campaign in modern political history. And that's why she lost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
that
wasn't a woman thing for me.
Right.
And I want to be clear on that. I don't hate her because she's a woman. And I don't like Kamala Harris because she's a woman. I didn't vote for Obama because he's black. I voted for him and against him in both cases, not because he was black, because I didn't like what he was, or I really liked who he was, given the situation. Anyway, we've got a new breaking piece of information. This is real news, and we're not making this up, and it is coming across wires in the last 2 hours, and it is informative. So I'm going to put this up on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
What? This is for real.
It is for real. It is absolutely for real.
They've come out. They've hope that Donald Trump wins, and they hope that he removes all American forces from Afghanistan so that Afghanistan can finally be peaceful and start murdering children again.
Here's what's funny about
How much are they going to pay him to
that.
do it?
Oh, and for our podcast people, it says the Taliban has endorsed Donald Trump.
Right.
I got a note from somebody that says we should start reading our bumpers when we have
Good
podcast
suggestion.
people.
And I wish people would share their names so we can give them credit. That is a great suggestion. I love that. And look, contrary to what you think, I'm a very nice guy. I love feedback. I take constructive feedback. I may sound like I'm mad, but people think black folks are mad all the time. So it's no problem. But no, here's what's funny. Like I saw
feedback.
something.
I have some feedback.
Saw some.
I have some feedback.
You have some feedback. All right.
You smell like
So,
you
that's
smell
your
like
camera.
you smell like pork
Let me-
chops.
That's right. Pork chop.
Your
At least you
camera
didn't
sucks.
say. At least you didn't say fried chicken, because then I'd have to gut you. So anyway, here's what's hilarious about that. Like I saw on Trump's Twitter, like a few days ago, before I think it was right after he went into the hospital with COVID. He had something posted from like the UK about how like he had some endorsement and that he was winning and everything, right? So the fact that the Taliban endorsed Donald Trump, who gives a rip? They can't vote over here. No one cares. And check it
If
out.
Democrats had their way, they'd be allowed to vote.
No, they wouldn't. Get out of here. Anybody that's one of those far right wing nuts that sits here is like America everything. If I heard that the Taliban was endorsing Donald Trump, I'd vote the other way, right? I mean, that's what everybody's platform is about. Look, I'm just calling it like I see it. I call it like I see it.
Philosophical consistency is the last thing that anybody in America is interested in, other than myself. And
Right.
we talked about that at length
Exactly.
last week.
Yes, we did.
Let's
Yes,
talk
we
to
did.
impromptu news that came down this week. The FBI, who works for the White House,
Woo!
came down
Yes.
and arrested a dozen people in Michigan and in and around
Hmm.
Michigan who were going to kidnap the governor because they didn't like the governor's approach to keeping them safe during COVID. And they're right in that she way overstepped their civil liberties. In spite of it being for good reasons, she way overstepped civil liberties. The court said as much. You can't do this, you can't do that. She was inconsistent with what she banned. It's a real thing. But they said they wanted to kidnap her ass. I don't know what their plan after that was, but it couldn't have been good. Law and order party, the Republican Party. You can't have rioters. It was in the debates. You can't have rioters. If you were a real politician, a real leader, you would secure your cities. Let us do it for you. This is ridiculous. They're not protesters. They're looters. No, they're protesters, and there's some looting going on. And law and order for all Americans. It doesn't matter. Law and order, terrorists on the right wanting to kidnap. Oh, well, she's batshit crazy. It's her fault and all this stuff. This is the president of the United States, and this is the right, and these are his followers. There's no philosophical honesty. They cheer for what they want to hear. They cheer for their guy and not what he does. And so you're absolutely, I get your sarcasm for sure, but we live in America.
They
This
want
is
to
not.
win.
They want
It's
to
about
win.
winning.
Absolutely.
It's not about what's right. It's about winning.
That's exactly
Yeah.
correct.
Hmm.
All
And
right.
we're in a sad state of affairs, so it is what it is.
Okay, so that's the state of the election as it is. There's no debate coming. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week, but nothing structured. Just name calling and God knows what. We'll
If
see
you had a
next
better
week.
camera, we could read your shirt there, Pierre. But
Yeah, Pierre, we're getting about 4 frames a second, and you're
For
about 10
for
by
the
20 resolution and
for the
3 colors.
listeners of the podcast, it says United States of America because
and for the people watching on YouTube too.
Good one.
Okay, so we're going to talk about what may happen after the election, but we want to put something in the middle that is not politics and is not depressing. So let's talk about how the economy of the entertainment industry is completely collapsing. And one of the greatest strengths of the United States of America is probably going to evaporate and blow away, and it's the end of the world. Dune is done. Okay. Jeff came on the show specifically to talk about how terrible the Dune movie is, and the idea of making a third Dune property is terrible, and he's hoping that they never ever make it again. I want to throw on this a discussion about Star Wars, so we're going to do a twofer. Dune is done is actually a sarcasm title that refers to the fact that Dune. Well, Jeff, you talk about it. It's you're a subject matter expert.
So Dune is delayed a full year, and I am real sad. I guess we can throw in Bond is delayed to next year again now too. This is their third delay.
Well, let's update that a little bit. All of
Yeah.
Hollywood is basically delayed. In fact,
Yeah.
major movie chains have decided that they're going to just shut down the theaters because the last possible blockbusters for the fall and winter holiday seasons are now gone.
Yep. Yeah, because here's the thing, and I was having this conversation with my wife here a few days ago because she's a huge Bond fan. She's like, why won't they just release it on the streaming services? And I was like, well, the reason why they're probably not is some of these movies ultimately is going to come down to money. Some of these movies are going to be in 3D. You don't have that at home. They can charge you that premium of like, hey, go watch the
IMAX.
crap in 3D or the IMAX. So they're going to find some way to get that extra dollar out of you before they release it on the streaming services. They don't want to spend. I'm sure Bond costs about $200 million to make. I'm quite sure they want to try to recoup as much as they can in the theaters before they send that to the streaming services or before they release it on ultra high definition 4K Blu-ray and everything. So that's the big reason that you're going to keep seeing all these major movies keep getting pushed back.
So we talked about this back in when we first started recording, and I want to say, what was that? Sorry, earlier this year. And Jeff pointed out that movies were dead, theaters were dead because Trolls 2 was released directly to video, and it did a really good job. It made major money. But I said at the time that I didn't think that was probably accurate because it was a movie. It was the only show during a crisis. Parents were looking for a movie babysitter, and Trolls 2 was it, and there was no competition. But Mulan 2 came out, or Mulan Live, or whatever that we call it, came out, and it didn't do as well. And so I think that I was correct, unfortunately, in that theaters are a thing. Theaters are the key to recouping costs and making money. And they're not going to go away. And the industry will wait this out, especially when they know that there's an end on the way. The vaccines are real. This is going to stop at some point middle of next year. And they will release a bunch of movies. They have to make it back. Bond is costing them money by sitting there. Right. So they had a major marketing campaign. Most movies, maybe a sixth of their budget or a third of their budget is marketing. They spent that marketing money and they have nothing to show for it. Then they did a proto marketing in the last month, talking about it, doing interviews, releasing new clips, because they anticipated, they were building the hype again for a release in November. Then they pulled the plug again. Now they're going to have to do it a third time. So these movies are going to end up costing them more. They have got to make even more money back. Prices are going to go up. There'll be less seats, which means less volume, because some theater chains are going to go out of business. It's going to be a hard nut to crack.
That was my main thing, was not necessarily that theaters weren't necessary, but they were already not doing as well. I didn't think they were going to be able to survive until they were able to come back. I thought everyone was going to go bankrupt before they were able to reopen.
And that may be the case.
Yeah.
But I think that real estate will be there. I think if look, think about what you just said, the term bankrupt. Okay, what is bankrupt? Well, the company goes away and their debts are forgiven. But what is the process? Well, what assets do you have? I have a bunch of real estate and movie technology. So somebody comes in and buys them with no liability and sits on that property until the movies do come back, and then goes to Hollywood and says, I own 300 movie screens across the Midwest, and you want to show your movie, so will you send it to me? Somebody will own that property and make popcorn and open that 5 minutes after the vaccine drops, and they will show movies. It's just a matter of, is it going to be April or July?
Yeah.
At this point, but there's not going to be anything. And you're right. There's people that are going to lose their businesses, but there'll be new businesses that'll come up. All of these restaurants that are going to go out of business, those properties, some of them are prime real estate and they have kitchens and they have seats. Somebody's going to reopen that place and put a steak on your table, and I'm going to be happy to buy it from them. So, it's just a matter of who owns it and what it's called. And waiters will have jobs again, and hopefully, things will start to pick up.
And I'll finally get to see Dune.
I don't know what your infatuation with Dune is.
It's Star Wars. Like, it's the Star Wars angle.
Okay, let's talk about Star Wars.
So here's my question: so with this Dune remake,
Pierre knows nothing about Dune.
I know a little bit. There was Dune that came out in 1983, I believe, or 1985, with Cal MacLachlan as the main character. I believe there was a mini series that came on Sci-Fi. It came on some network. There was a mini series,
He's done some
Sci-Fi.
research.
And come on, dude. What do I do? Okay, I know something. And then now, I believe there may have been another one after that. I don't remember. But then now you have this one.
There was Children of Dune.
Children of Dune. So now we have this one directed by Denis Villeneuve, who is, I like him as a visionary director, but, he needs to get to the point of his movies. He directed Blade Runner 2049. He directed Annihilation. He's a very good or Arrival, sorry. But he's a very good director. But
he's visually very good.
Right. So I have no doubt that Dune is going to look good. My question is, are they fighting over spices again in this one? Or did they modernize it a little bit?
And man, you had it good. You did the research, and you sound like the guy that did the research. And then you said they made Dune in 1983, and then they made a Sophie series, and then they made another one. No, they didn't. And are they still fighting over the spices? You should have stopped while you were ahead.
They're fighting over spices. That is still going to be the thing.
Okay.
It's more. I mean, the spice must flow, but it's more about the family drama.
There's three families. Okay. There's the.
It's Game of Thrones. It's sci-fi Game of Thrones.
So I thought they were fighting over salt, pepper, paprika in like the first one, and then the second one was over ginger spice, baby spice, scary spice, and then now I'm totally joking with you.
The spice
The Harkonnens.
you're not far off, though.
Okay, so the Harkonnens have a monopoly on basil. Okay. And the Tyndalls are wanting to get a hold of as much basil as they can because they're both going to make spaghetti sauce for the emperor. And the Aches clan comes in and says, we burn down all the basil and all hell breaks loose. Okay. So that's Dune. And then Kizak Switterak or whatever her name is. I don't. So
I do.
it's
I
a
do,
hot mess. It's
I'm
Game
dying
of
to look
Thrones
at it right
and-
now.
So I got homework. I got homework that I need to do that I'm
Yes.
assigning myself. My father assigned me something. He was like, go on Stars and watch the show, watch a movie called The Emperor. So I'm going to do that. And my assignment to myself is I'm going to watch. I have avoided it for years for no good reason. I just haven't done it. I know there are a couple of different versions of the 1983 one. So I'm a
Don't do
fan
it.
of like
Don't do it.
of long versions. So I'm going to watch the extended one. I'm watching the
No,
long one.
Watch
Don't
the sci-fi
no,
miniseries.
no,
Watch the sci-fi miniseries if you're gonna watch
no,
anything,
no.
really.
Do this. Okay. Do one of
or
two
get the
things.
audiobook.
Do one of two
Right.
things. Read the book, read the audiobook, except I don't recommend it. Wait for the movie to come out and enjoy the movie. And be
Okay.
okay with someone who doesn't know everything about everything. Well,
Okay.
enjoy this movie because I think this movie has got to be better than either of the other two properties. The
Okay.
miniseries is very miniseries, and the actual movie from the mid 80s is
Mhm.
horrible. It's unwatchable, and it's definitely not something you could follow. If you do
Ooh.
want to watch the original movie, you better go read the book first.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
I have intentionally not watched the old movie because I like the book so much.
I find the books to be, I don't like the books. And I've read the first two and I read the summary of the other books. That's not a trip I want to go on. Holy Christ. The way
This new
those books
movie.
jump forward and then come
Mhm.
back and the foreshadowing and it just
So the
gets
new
really,
movie.
2 is
sounds like it gets really
1.5.
weird.
The new movie has some star power behind it. It's got one of my favorite actors, Oscar Isaacs, is in it. He's one of my favorites. It's got Josh Brolin, who is turning out an impressive. He's turning out some impressive credits for some blockbusters that he's been in. So, I like Josh. And then it's got Dave Bautista in it, who was a big Denis Villeneuve employee. So, it's got some good star power behind it. I think Jason Momoa's in it too. So I think it's got some.
Duncan, Idaho. He's gonna be great.
And that's another thing. What kind of stupid fucking name is Duncan, Idaho? I would name my dog Duncan.
It's from
fucking
what, the
Idaho.
60s? So
That's
one
worse
thing.
than Indiana Jones. Duncan,
Oh, I
fucking
can't.
Idaho.
I can't. One thing I will say, I'm glad they're doing. I'm glad it's two movies. It needed to be two movies. There's way too much
Oh,
to cram into one. I think they're going to do the first book, two movies. That's going to be it. I know HBO, they were supposed to do some type of prequel series with the Bene Gesserit, but who knows if that's going to happen. I think it's going to be. Lord of the Rings is a bad example because they did the Hobbit movies, but I think it's going to be a two and done. I don't think they're going to go into the sequels. Like you said, it gets too convoluted. It's too weird. I
It
think you've
gets
got a
really weird
Yeah.
really fast.
yeah. I think you've got a really good story in the first book. I think you split that into two movies and then you're done.
I could see them maybe doing the second movies, but they're going to have to cut it off. There's no way they're going to go 10,000 years into the future with regeneration and reincarnation. And
No, yeah.
It's just-
I think best case they do the twins. They remake Children of Dune, and that's the end of it.
so, can I say something that's going to come across as racist and sexist? And it's not, because I have no problem with, generally speaking, black people, and I have no problem with women, generally speaking. And this person's a fine, but I just really don't like Zendaya. Is it just me? Because she's in this as well. She plays the Sean Young role. She plays his girlfriend, his wife, and
can
I
I
just
give
am
you a
over
word
her.
of advice? Can I give you a word of advice though? You could have just said. You
I don't
could
like
have just
Zendaya.
said. I'm not a fan of Zendaya. It doesn't have to be. I'm generally a fan. No, if you don't
No.
like her, you don't like her. Just
See-
say that.
See, you live in a world where you have the
You're the
privilege
one
of-
that said it.
you live in a world where you have the privilege of being a minority and therefore don't have to worry about offending
The
people.
privilege of being a minority.
You listen to this guy.
I
Thank
have
you for listening to the last episode of Brother and the Man.
I have the cultural bias against me of whatever I say is immediately being racist and sexist if it's against anyone who's not a white male. So you have the privilege of being black, and therefore You can say white people are stupid. If I say somebody is stupid and they happen to be black or a woman, then we're going to get protested and we're going to get canceled. So I have to get out in front of it and make sure that I tell people that that's not the reason I said it.
I think it's a small enough part where it won't matter. I don't mean to jump in here, but it's
so when you say
it
won't matter, you agree that she's terrible?
Not that, but I think it wouldn't matter if she was great or terrible.
You're racist.
Chani as a character is always
you did have
around,
a disclaimer,
but she doesn't talk much. I think she's going to be just kind of there in the background. She's going to have a couple badass scenes where she kicks somebody in the face, and that's going to be the end of it. Maybe her cans come out, maybe not. Who knows? We'll see.
I don't like her as Mary Jane Watson. My daughter watched her as a Disney actress, a Disney princess, on whatever that show she had 3 or 4 years ago. I just am not a big fan of her. And I don't get it, but it's fine.
Chinese eye candy.
What?
Chinese eye candy. That's what she's there for.
Chinese eye candy.
Chani, the character.
You said Chinese eye candy.
I said Chinese eye
racist. And you didn't say a disclaimer. You should have said it's not because she's Chinese. She's not Chinese. Chinese eye candy. Oh, that's terrible.
That was Mulan.
She does come off as Debbie Downer in the Spider-Man movie. It's like, good grief, this chick is depressing. Why are you after her?
So okay. So going back to our original point, they pulled Bond, they pulled Dune, they pulled Black Widow. Everything is postponed now, pretty much basically a year. All of the calendar events are off for a year. Production has been postponed for a year. Very little is coming on streaming. Streaming is the new focus, just to kind of keep people alive. Mandalorian starts in 2 weeks, season 2.
Cobra Kai, January 8th.
Vision of Scarlet Witch that doesn't count. Vision of Scarlet Witch starts in December. Cobra Kai is coming, but that was already in the can. That's a freebie. Yeah. But they did announce season 4. It's also a terrible show. I'd like to be on record.
Number 1 on Netflix, sir.
Doesn't make that. Well, yes. Number 1 on Netflix and terrible are not mutually exclusive. Okay. All right. Very good. So we talked that to death. Okay. So we're concerned about how movies are postponed and it's making Jeff depressed. We agree that theaters are now, for better or for worse, necessary for American Hollywood, American motion picture industry, and it's not going to go away. It has deeper pockets and is too culturally important. So for better or for worse, if movies may be more expensive, there may be less of them, there may be less theaters, we may go less often, but they will continue to be a thing for the foreseeable future. It's not an all digital world yet. So let's talk about something that I've been talking about and wanting to talk about for a long time, and we can't postpone anymore. And this is very serious, and it's not going to surprise anybody. We're not coming up with anything new or creative. We're not even going to come up with opinions that are going to be new. But we're going to talk about what is going to happen the night of the election and for a month thereafter. And I'll set the stage. The presumption is that people that are pro-Trump are less concerned about COVID than people who are pro-Biden, taken as a general, and that people who are pro-Biden are more likely to be concerned about the virus and more concerned about voting in person and the dangers that might portray. And none of us knows what's going to happen with COVID between now and a month from now. The weather's going to get colder. People are going to be more inside. The expectations are that things are going up, have been for about 3 weeks, and it's going to ramp up quickly. The flu of 1918 and 1919 both did exactly that. Pandemics have a tendency to ramp back up in a second phase as we get into the winter months. So people are likely to be afraid, even if there's not cause. There's not going to be a vaccine readily available, and this election is coming. So people who are on the left inclined, anti-Trump, are more likely to want to vote by mail-in ballot, or maybe not vote at all, stay home, find an alternative way to vote. People who are pro-Trump are going to go out and get in the line, and they don't care. Again, we're stereotyping and we're generalizing in a very broad way. But if that's the case and things are relatively close, within a margin of errors, there's about a 10-point difference between Biden's lead and Trump's deficit. What we very well could have happen is a large turnout for Trump and those votes being counted and going into election night and Trump leading in those swing states. Again, well, the swing states. I'll just call them that. We all know who they are. But unlike any time in previous history, a asterisk that says the uncounted votes from mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, manually drop box ballots that haven't been counted yet, those votes are in excess of the margin of error, right? So in Michigan, Trump has got, pick up some numbers out of my ass, 3.2 million, and Biden has 2.8 million, and Trump is up by 400,000 votes. But there's 1.2 million votes that haven't been counted yet. So we can't call the election. And that's going to happen in more states than not. And the result is going to be that at the end of the night on November 3rd or 4th, whatever it is, we're not going to know who won the election. And Trump is going to be angry because he's going to want the election called for him. So that is the beginning of the crisis. Everything up to this point has been bad. This is really where it gets bad, because then we're talking about lawsuits, multiple lawsuits, challenging everything, the absentee ballots, challenging every Chad count. Think about Florida 20 years ago, and then start talking about that in multiple states, lawsuits, multiple cases coming to a Trump-biased Supreme Court. Does Amy sit on that court at that point? And if she does she recuse herself or not from those kinds of decisions? Case by case by case by case. District courts voting against Trump and then appealing to the Supreme Court. It's just gonna be, and then what happens on top of that? And I'm painting a picture here, and I don't mean to overtalk everybody else, but while that's happening, demonstrations, counter demonstrations, violence, good old boys with their long arms out marching, a very active Second Amendment based Black movement that is coming up very quickly, also marching, theoretically, those two groups running into each other. I really, I worry. And I've said it before, I'm trying to get as much sleep as I can, because I don't think I'm going to sleep well between the election night and December 8th being a drop dead date where they're theoretically supposed to announce the winner when they count the votes in the House of Representatives. Florida was bad. Go back and read about Florida in 2000, Gore v. Bush, and add to that mix multiple states and a complete lack of tact or maturity or civility. Now, what do we think of that? Am I being overly alarmistic? Is that even a word?
Get your popcorn ready.
See, I don't think this is a popcorn event. I take this extremely seriously. There's no joke here.
You can take it seriously, but I think you need to not be. Maybe this is the Pollyanna-ish stuff in me, but I think whoever wins this re-election is going to roll the other one. I don't know. From the Electoral College standpoint, I think it's going to be a blowout one way or the other. That's what I think. And I think it's going to come down to, like, anybody that's like protesting the results or suing about the results is just sour grapes. Trump could win by the same electoral count that he did before, and we knew he was president that night of the election. We knew that. There's also the chance that Biden could run it up like Obama did against McCain and Romney, to where it's like before midnight in Missouri, you knew the race was over. And I have a feeling that's what we're going to see here. And like if Biden does run it up on Trump and these states are dropping, the only thing Trump's going to have to do is be spitting into the wind. He's getting the fuck out on January 20th, no matter what. And I don't care how many lawsuits he does. If he gets blown out in the Electoral College, he has no leg to stand on. And same thing with Biden.
I think the only way it gets really nasty is if it ends up in the Supreme Court, because I don't think she's going to recuse herself if she's in. I think the fact that they're putting someone in an election year shows they're going to do whatever they need to win. I think then it's going to get nasty, because I think then people are going to get angry. That's when people are going to take the streets. That's when the rioting is going to start, all that kind of stuff. I hope it's a blowout one way or the other. I mean, ideally, I hope it's for Biden, but I think the worst thing that could happen is if it's close. I don't see that being the case, but I really, that may just be wishful thinking.
I don't think that there's any chance. So the only positive scenario, positive from civil peace perspective, is that it would be some sort of clear Biden victory. And I think we'll know that relatively early on, because you're going to look at states that shouldn't have gone for Trump that did, and you're going to be looking to see what happens there. If, for lack of a better, I hate to break it down and I hate to use race labels, but if black people, no, I'm serious, if black people vote in numbers that they didn't vote in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, and they push, in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and they push Pennsylvania well into the Biden column, and I'm talking about with real votes in person that are counted that day, and we see Pennsylvania go for Biden, and we see Ohio, which is unlikely to go for Biden, and we see Michigan, which is likely to go for Biden, then we'll know that it's over. At that point, the Rust Belt states have voted for him, and the Democratic firewall is back. But if it comes down to, there is no scenario where Trump wins that handily and cleanly that night, because there will be absentee ballots to be counted. And if those absentee ballots are larger than the margin of error, right, there are more votes uncounted than there is a difference between the two candidates. Now we have got to go count those absentee ballots, and that will take a week or so. And then as soon as you start that process, that's where the contestants or the contesting comes about, and the protesting and everything that spins out of that. And I just don't understand. I don't see how that's not going to be the case. You've got to have huge numbers of young people and black people and moderates and all of the people that already voted for Hillary. All of those people, all of them have to come out and vote in person on election day. Pierre, you already said you voted by mail. I said I'm waiting for my absentee ballot to come in, and I'm voting by mail. So 2 of the 3 of us are going to vote by mail, and we're moderates. We're not extreme people. We're more likely to vote in person as opposed to someone who's poor or disenfranchised or works hard. Jeff hasn't even voted yet. I don't know that
I'm voting in person.
Okay. But are you going to this time?
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to go get
absolutely.
mine?
Yeah. I mean, we never have a live, but yeah.
Well, here's the thing about Colorado, just so people understand. It's not absentee. That's how they do their process. Like, we're going to mail you your ballot. You can fill it out and mail it in if you want, or you can take it to your polling location, whatever you want to do. But the bottom line is, we're sending you your ballot.
It doesn't matter, though. My point is still valid, because your votes will not be counted until after election night. They will sit in a hole somewhere.
Well, no, I'm taking mine to the polling location. I'm going to fill it out and take it to the polling location that night. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
okay, fair.
And that's what a lot of people in Colorado do, and I think that's where a lot of people. Colorado has the situation well in hand, and I think a lot of people heard, oh, they're mail-in ballots, and they don't understand. They just hear, like, I got to put mine back in the mail. People like my father, and I'm not downing on him, but we went back and forth on this. It's like, no, I'm not voting by mail. They send me my ballot, and I can decide if I want to put it in the mail or if I can take it to my polling location, or I can take it there and I can fill it out. Doesn't matter. But the bottom line is I have my ballot, and that's what I do. And a lot of folks just get hung up on the term that they're mailing ballots is what it is.
I think that early on, we're going to know what happens. Well, I'm contradicting myself, and I'm misspeaking. We're gonna know if the election is going to be clean or not early on. And again, I point to North Carolina and Pennsylvania, and then a little bit later, Michigan as being indicators, and Florida as well. Although Florida always goes late into the night, but in Pennsylvania, Trump won 48.2% to 47.5%. In North Carolina, it was close. It was 49.8 to 46.2. The number of people of color that didn't vote would have swung that the other way. If those people come out and vote in person, and they're allowed to vote in person, and the Republican governors are doing all kinds of tricks to try to stop that, then we may have a clean election that's over that night, and that's what we all hope for.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, no matter how clean the results may be, Trump's I feel is going to try to make it dirty any which way. Even if he's getting blown TF out,
Yes.
he's gonna try to make it dirty.
But there's a difference though. I genuinely think that if you count votes and the votes are
Mhm.
counted and it's very clear that Biden has won, let's say Pennsylvania and Michigan. If he wins Pennsylvania and Michigan, the election's over, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Presuming all
totally.
other things are equal. Trump won because they took all Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida. If he loses 2 or 3 of those, he doesn't win the election. If it's clear that he lost Pennsylvania because 3 million people voted against him, more than had voted against Hillary. Excuse me, against, you get my point. If the lead is large and it's in person and then it's that night, and there's nothing really to contest, I think that Trump will leave office because there's not going to be any way to win. I agree that he's going to say that it was fixed and it's because of this and it's because of that, and people voted that shouldn't have voted and dead people voted and all of these things. But I don't think society cares at that point.
I agree.
I think that once the election, if it's clean, again, margin of error. Hey, I've got to challenge every little Chad hanging off of every little piece of paper, all of Florida 20 years ago. That's one thing. And then rioting and protesting and counter protesting and conflict, and somebody having to make a decision in a court. I have ruled, one person, one group of people have ruled that you have lost in Michigan, and let it be so. Well, nobody has to accept that. That's the legislative branch deciding an election, which is never a good thing, no matter which way it goes. But if you have a clean election, no matter what kind of temper tantrum or Trumper tantrum he throws, nobody's going to care at that point. The bureaucracy is not going to care. The civil service is not going to care. The military is not going to care. And given that no one is going to give him any attention, he's going to either decide to leave early and screw you guys, I don't need to be president anymore. Pence, you can run this for 2 weeks. I'm out of here. Or he's going to want to have his time on stage as the outgoing president and try to run things. I don't know how that goes. I'd be happy to watch that show happen.
Do you think there's any chance? So say he loses, he's clearly going out. He's got, whatever, 2 months, however long it is, month and a half. How nuts does he go with executive orders and pardons in that time to try and shove as much through as he can before he's out?
I don't see,
especially if they've got the court.
We all want him to be a grown up, and we all want to presume that he's not going to do those kinds of things. But
we've been waiting 4 years for him to be a grown up.
Right.
We've been waiting.
There's only so much he can do with executive orders. Everybody thinks that executive orders are these decrees that have to be kept, and that's not the case with executive orders, as he's proven. He undid all the executive orders that Obama put in place, some of which were overreach, whether I like them or not. And his executive orders can be undone. Pardons, he can only pardon so many people. So yeah, I think he'll pardon everybody. I think he'll probably try to pardon himself, which he can't do. I bet he does. But
if he doesn't, he has control of the court.
But he may resign so that Pence can pardon him before they're both gone. I've come up with worse scenarios. I don't think that he'll leave quietly.
No, he's going to make some noise on his way out, regardless, blowout or not.
Let's say this happened, because look, when he came in as president, the day of the inauguration, Obama was the greatest thing of all time. He loved Obama. What a great president. And then he was back throwing him under the bus like a week later. So if, let's say, there's a clear-cut win and Biden just walks away, it's a landslide. Everybody's hated Trump. Everybody hates him because of COVID. Everybody thinks he's a disaster. We look like a circus on the world stage. Let's get rid of Trump. And people are going out of their way to vote for him. And people that are on the right are embarrassed to vote for him and they stay home. And there's some sense of that right now. So let's say it is a walk away. Let's say he wins in Ohio, Biden, and he wins in Florida, Biden, and it's not even close, Biden. And Trump reads the handwriting on the wall and calls him and says, "Congratulations, Joe. I did the best I could." Well, let's presume he does. Let's say it goes optimally.
Mike Pence will call Biden before Donald Trump does.
Let's say it goes optimally.
Okay.
He's still in office for 2 months, 2.5. all of November, all of December, a couple weeks in January. And boy, he will come unglued. Either that or he'll just resign outright and go home. And that's probably the ideal. Screw you guys. Nixon said this when he lost the election to Kennedy. He said, you don't have Richard Nixon to kick around anymore. He came back later, but he went home in a huff. The perfect scenario would be for Trump to go home and become a talk show host and the poster child for the left is evil movement, which, is what he wants to do anyway. Because that's how he's going to make money, and that's how he's going to cover his ass and continue to be relevant, because that's what he cares about.
And pay off that $421 million personal debt too, right?
God, I hope that's not accurate. But whatever. So the post-election is going to be scary, although apparently I'm overreacting ahead of the case.
You might be, but I mean, there's still some thought that it could happen. But I like I said, Bush and Gore was like an aberration of where we didn't know that night, because I remember that day a lot, and there was a lot of funkiness going on in Florida, because at one point they called it for Gore, and then it went back, and it was Bush. So that was weird. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened since then. It hasn't happened before then. That was an aberration. It could happen this time, but usually before you go to bed on election night, you know who your next president is.
Pierre, I've known you a long time. You're smart, and you're probably smarter than me, intellectually speaking, brain power wise. You could not be more wrong. There is zero chance we're going to know. If I call in sick the next day or take the day off and I'm thinking about it, and I stay up till 6 a.m, there is no chance that we're going to have a clear-cut win. Even putting aside who accepts who. I'm talking about putting aside Trump and his willingness to concede the election. That's not going to happen. I'm talking about it's very obvious that Biden has won or Trump has won, and that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Trump, let me say that again. If people of color and people of youth do not come out and vote, it could be that Trump wins. I read an article today that said that statistically speaking, it's about a 1 in 7 chance that he wins the Electoral College. But short of that kind of decisive victory in favor of the Republican candidate, there's zero chance that this is going to be a clean election. There's zero chance we'll know that week.
Well, here's the thing, though. The worst thing that could have happened for Trump, not only is COVID, but cops started blowing away brothers on camera the way that they did. And because COVID and people were at home, people had a lot of more time to protest, and they are angry, and they seem to be on the left side of things, to where it's like that could have been worse timing for him. And people are motivated. They just are.
You said black people elect people.
They do. Black people get folks elected.
Black people voting for a candidate get them elected. Black people not voting for a candidate
get them not elected. Right. Mm-hmm.
I hope and I pray that, and I'm biased, I'm the most anti-Trump person in this room, that black people do come out in droves and vote for Joe Biden. All other things being equal.
Joe Biden does probably have better standing among black people than what Hillary Clinton did. I'm just
absolutely,
especially with black men. Just going to be honest about it, just from what I've heard.
But are those black people going to go vote at the polls, or are they going to use mail-in ballots? That's my question.
They're going to vote at the polls. Black people historically go to the polls. I mean,
historically doesn't have anything to do with COVID. It's 2020.
But I think most of your mail-ins are going to come from suburbia.
Right. Yeah. Like
I think most. I mean, this is going to come out really bad. Yeah, not that most black families are lower income, but I think the lower income bracket is going to be more likely to vote in person.
But the coalition, I've said this before, the coalition is a three-legged coalition. It's the Democratic core at the top of the tripod. But the three legs of the tripod are young people, black people, and moderate Republicans or moderate suburbanites or independents or however you want to group that group of us. That's me. Okay. So yes. Black people, let's say that black people do get in line and vote. They're in black neighborhoods. They have no choice anyway. They got to work together and they might as well vote together. Okay. But I'm also part of that tripod, right? So, okay, black votes are counted, but are the white suburban votes counted that night? Because they are necessary for putting Biden in the White House as well.
Well,
If
they'll get counted that night because they're going to have more poll resources. So they'll get counted that night.
it's not, it doesn't work that way. Absentee ballot and mail-in ballots cannot be counted until after the election
I
by
think you're
law.
I think you're overestimating the number of absentee ballots that there's going to
I think
be.
yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be more people voting in person than you think.
Okay, so keep talking.
I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
I just
could be wrong. Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be that many to the point to where it's like, well, if we don't get these absentee ballots counted, we don't have a president.
I, I,
I don't think it's going to be that significant.
I think if we were in say June, that area, there would be a lot more mail-ins. But I think things have opened up to the point now. People are sick of sitting at home. That I think a lot more people are going to vote in person than would have. Like I said, if COVID had started later and we were in the May situation in
Hmm.
November, then I think you're absolutely right. But I
Hmm.
think by now, I mean, not that everything's opened back up, but I think people are more willing to go out than they were, you know,
And
4 months
plus
Okay,
you
ago.
gotta
let's look at.
look at all
Let me
these
give.
different things that are going on, right? The NBA did something monumental that I don't think we've quite talked about on the show. There was a lot of talk that NBA players shouldn't play because it's going to take away from the movement and what's going on. And the one thing that they did with their platform, and they may come around a champion tomorrow, is hey, all of our arenas that we have, and they've got 32, I think 30 to 32 arenas, and they all hold about 20 to 40,000 people. They made those polling locations. So you're gonna have people going to all these different places, all these different avenues to vote, especially in these major cities. And some of them are battleground states to where it's like people are gonna vote in person. They are.
All right, so let's talk about some numbers as of October 9th, which is
Numbers.
yesterday. All right, absentee ballot requests so far. Okay, and people can request them for another week or so, depending on their state. In Florida, 5.5 million people have requested absentee ballots, which is more. They don't give me numbers for 2016. I'm looking at as a line, but it looks like it's about 40. It looks like the 2016 numbers is about 60% of that 5.5. So if I'm guessing, maybe 3.5 million people voted by absentee ballot in 2016, and we're already at 5.5 million. In Michigan, there's 2.7 million people that have voted or have requested absentee ballots so far, and half of that total in Michigan. In Pennsylvania, 2.522 million, and it looks like maybe 50,000 people voted by absentee ballot in Pennsylvania. These are huge numbers. Okay. Now, if half of those people turn in absentee ballots, let's concentrate on Michigan. If 5.5 million people are requested, we'll round it up to 6, and 3 million people have uncounted ballots on election night. And the margin of error in number of total votes in Michigan was about 200,000. Let's say it's a similar number or an even bigger number because more people that would have voted for Hillary are now voting absentee ballot. Let's say it's 500,000 people. Trump has got a 500,000 people lead, but you've got 3 million absentee ballots that haven't been counted. You're not going to know that night. If you don't know in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Florida who won, you don't know the election. And that's a fact. And that's what I'm talking about. If that is the case, lawsuits, counter lawsuits, evolutions to courts where courts will ultimately make the decision, protests, counter protests in the streets for days and days and days. And you've seen what that's been like so far when most people agree with Black Lives Matter. But now you're contesting their president, their emperor. Emperor Oompa Loompa is in danger. Proud Boys, stand by. What are they standing by for is exactly this.
So what if, just as a question, if I don't think it's as likely, but say Biden is ahead on election night, but it's still within that margin of error, and there's still 3 million votes out. Do you think it's as big a hubbub, for lack of a better word?
No, if Biden has got the lead and there's absentee ballots, that's going to swing way more in his favor because everybody knows the absentee ballots trend Democratic in most states. Military
I,
ballots trend Republican, but military ballots are not going to move the needle. It's going to be absentee ballots. It's going to be mail-in COVID ballots.
well, I'm just wondering. So COVID ballots is why I bring that up. How many of those people who are requesting absentees are old people, like retired people that are more susceptible to COVID? that would normally, be out in droves to vote in person, but at this point are risking their lives.
I think it's a fair number. The number of absentee ballots requested is up. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And it favors Democrats. That's a fact, generally speaking. And that's an argument that Trump is making. He's in favor of absentee ballots, but he's against mail-in ballots, in spite of the fact that he's going to use an absentee ballot to vote. And that, it's the safe thing to do. But there's enough examples, real world examples, even if half of them are fake. They're finding mailmen that are throwing ballots away. They're finding pre-printed ballots. There's enough of the stuff, even if it's orchestrated, to make their argument resonate with their people. I told you that they were going to cheat. We already called them cheating.
They took my job.
They took my gerbs. Merca. So no, I think it's naive, and I don't mean to call anybody naive, but in this case, I hope I'm wrong. I've been wrong about some things this year. I thought that we would never have to go to a football game tomorrow for my daughter because COVID was going to be running rampant, and they would have canceled all sports. Well,
you're
I'm
a Dolphins
driving
fan, for God's sake.
What?
I said you're a Dolphins fan, for God's sake.
I'm a Cardinals fan. But anyway, hey, we didn't mention last week while we were on the show. We lost. Christ, help me out.
Bob
Pierre.
Gibson.
Bob Gibson died.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Another great person. He was like the black equivalent to. Yeah, I just butchered this. Jeff got mad at me one night because I said that. Who's that great cardinal from the '60s? The statue out front.
Stan Musial?
Stan Musial. Well, Stan Musial died that night. Jeff and I were together, and I said, Stan Musial died. Jeff said something about, who the hell is Stan Musial? Who cares? And I came down, I'm like a tongue of bricks, and then he came out. He blew up at me because, why are you always nailing me? Why don't you nail Dan? Which was fair, but he's like in my mind,
you've been nailing
like,
Dan since college, but that's something else.
Well, no, he nailed me.
Oh, that's not true.
I'm fully dilated. It's terrible. He's and we lost Lou Brock earlier this year, yes. I think. Mm-hmm. So those guys, I always think of them as a pair. That's again the black thing. Sorry, Pierre. I tried to do better, but they were great black baseball players in the 60s when there weren't a lot of those, and they were both Cardinals, and they're both from our city. So it is something, and to have them both pass away the same year, and they were both lifelong Cardinals. They would go to spring training every year. They wore and they bled red, and so it is a terrible thing, and it's a private, personal, selfish thing to lament it, but it did. We got off the air, and I went and I was way late for bed. And I went upstairs and I checked my phone and I said, "Oh Christ!" And I think I tweeted you or texted you right away.
Yep.
And so that was rough. So comment on that a week late.
Definitely. When you take into account, like Bob Gibson is so revered in St. Louis. When you talk to any Cardinals fan, you mentioned Bob Gibson. Then you take Lou Brock down a couple of months earlier. So yeah, definitely. City of St. Louis, the Cardinals organization. Definitely lost some titans when it comes to the community.
Yeah, and to reflect on him as a baseball player, not as a humanitarian, which was great, and a trailbreaker, but he was also just one of the best pitchers of all time.
Still holds the record for lowest ERA in a season, 1.12.
I'm looking at
average
Bleacher Reports and has his ranked as the 10th greatest pitcher of all time in the Major League Baseball. He's up there with Greg Maddux and Roger Clemson, amazing. And there's a great documentary about the speed of pitchers and the history of pitching in Major League Baseball. And he's featured on there. It's worth watching. It's a terrible thing to see him have passed away. So we're sad for that reason. The Cardinals are eliminated. We're sad for that. The Blues were terrible. We're sad for that. The Dolphins are terrible. We're sad for that. Green Bay's doing well. We're sad for that. San Francisco is doing okay. But San Francisco's
sad for that.
in a tight little NFC West there.
They are, but we're getting healthy now. We're getting people back. We still won't have Bosa and we still won't have Solomon Thomas, but offense coming back, baby. Jimmy
Yeah,
G.
We need
I'm
this may be a thing for next week, but I need the we being used in sports explained to me one of these days, because I see people use we and I don't see them out on the field on Sundays, and that's always been a
I,
pet peeve with me, and I need it explained. I'm sure I'm wrong, but I just need it explained to me.
I will explain it now. As I was having this conversation earlier this week, and I'm going to get some shit on this, but I don't care, man. They've been giving me shit all my life. I love the 49ers
no
more
shit.
more than I love some of my family members.
Back up off your microphone.
That's number
You
one.
more than you love your dad, you love the 49ers.
I didn't say my dad. I said family members. That could mean cousins. That could mean uncles. I didn't say my father, although he'd be pissing me off sometimes. No, just joking, Dad. Love you. But I know, like, that's number one. Number two, I'm a season ticket holder. So I pay some salaries.
Bougie,
I get the right to say we. They
bougie.
represent me on that field, and they do better. So yeah, we, family,
Jeff, I've heard you say we about sports before.
No, not at
Yeah,
all.
especially about you and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh
We're
well,
winning.
that's a sexual thing. That's not a football thing.
We won the game. We had a great weekend.
We are a
We
great quarterback.
we were inside of each other.
The third one maybe, but no, the first two I actively avoid that. the we. Because again, I don't feel right. Even if I buy a ticket to a game and I pay 0.0001% of their salary or whatever it is,
Here,
if I'm not on the field, I don't feel the right to take any credit for it. I don't practice week in and week out. I don't put any physical effort. I don't take hits.
that
I
goes
just
back.
I don't feel like I earned that.
It's directly unrelated, but it goes back to my idea that national origin or race is meaningless. It should be, at least. Ancestry.com will tell you that I'm European. So shocking surprise. I'm every part of Europe except for whatever reason I totally miss France, but German, Nordic, all kinds of British, Greek, and none of that makes a goddamn bit of difference. I don't celebrate my Scottish heritage, although I'm primarily Scottish, or my Irish heritage. I don't have an affinity for those places because I'm not from there. I was born in the United States and I happen to have a white complexion. Mongolians celebrate the great achievements of Genghis Khan, who almost conquered the world 1,000 years ago. Or nobody cares about goddamn Genghis Khan if you're Mongolian. Mongolia is a backwards country. You shouldn't be celebrating that you're part of a backwards country. Shut up and do whatever the hell you do with your horses. Celebrating something that because you're descended from them is stupid. So I get your point. You're, being excited because your sports team wins in your city and you think that you've achieved something and getting drunk before that. I can relate to that. Having said that, I don't think it's about you performing on the field. I think it's about rooting for something and investing in something. And then when you've done that and you've lived and died with those people and they achieve something, that's an outlet. That's you. It's nothing more than an emotional celebration. You didn't achieve anything. We didn't achieve
I was
anything.
going to say, I think it's you taking credit for someone else's achievement without having to put forth the effort.
Well,
I think it's like people who like to complain about politics without voting. It's the same thing. They want to be able to get some type of a response or
right.
claim a win, I guess, without actually putting forth effort.
Well, I will say this about this is just for me personally. I can't speak for anyone else. Because I've always told people this. When the 49ers win, I win. I have a great week. When the 49ers lose, I feel like I lose. Like for me personally, that's how much I'm invested in the team. Like I love that team. The players that have come, not just with this current generation, but before. Like I seriously love this football team. And so, I take every loss as hard, and when it comes to the wins, we last year was a great year. We hadn't been having great years, but you know what? I was still there with them. And so for me, that's the mark of like, are you investing in that team or not? And I've been with that team through thick and thin. And so that's
Jeff,
just how I take it though.
the serious answer to your question is, to paraphrase what Pierre just said, let me mansplain it for the dumb people in the room.
White spleen it.
No,
For this
Pierre
black
doesn't.
man.
Pierre's not taking any credit for the 49ers winning or losing. Pierre's not got an investment in Joe Montana, and he's not claiming that he's part of a dynasty or whatever historical or current trend, good or bad. It's because he's saying San Francisco 49ers is larger than just the team and the front office and the ownership. It's a culture. And we're part of that culture because we're the fan base. And yes, I didn't contribute in any material way. My presence didn't make them win or lose, but I am part of that culture. So when that culture succeeds, we succeed. And I'm part of that we because I'm consistently loyal. I rise and fall with them. So I am part of, so there's degrees of inclusiveness, and their success is in part my success. We're not claiming that success. I'm not going to come to you and go, you suck and I'm awesome because we won.
But that happens though a lot.
Well, those are shit kickers.
Yeah, and I've
shit kickers.
And I've seen that. Like, I almost got in a fight with a Niners fan last year around this time. Me and my buddy Corb White listened to the show. He's a Cleveland Browns fan, and so we took a trip out there to watch the Browns and the Niners. And the Niners beat the crap out of the Browns, right? But I was there with my buddy. We had a good time. That's what it was about. And a Niners fan just rolls up on him, and he goes, he said something weird. Like, I can't remember exactly, but he says. He shakes his hand out, good game. And Core was like, yeah, okay, fine. He said, now go fuck yourself, is what the guy says to Core. And I'm like, okay, number one, you're not representative of Niner fans, right? Like, at this particular point, you've insulted my friend. I don't give a shit what jersey you're wearing. We're about to throw down because that was totally unnecessary, right? The situation got diffused. We didn't have to punch anyone, but it's like, that's what I don't like to see. I don't think those are real fans, and those aren't people that are used to winning anything, even in life. And so, I didn't like that. And so
I agree, but I think those people are the majority. I think that's the same reason why lower income people are generally more patriotic, especially on the Republican side, because they don't really have anything else to be proud of in a lot of cases. So at that point, it's they can take credit for someone else's accomplishment because they don't really have anything else to be proud of. And I think that's bleeding into football a lot.
Did you say poor white trash vote for Trump because they have nothing else going on?
Exactly. You know where I grew up. I grew up around those people, and that's exactly it. They have nothing else going on, so they watch
His
Fox
email
News all day.
jeff@jeff.com.
Yep. I'll take those emails. I'll have that argument all day.
No,
but I think that's the majority of NFL fans. I think, Pierre, you're the exception to that rule. And Andy too. But I think that's the majority of sports fans.
I think that the we is limited to no. I think that people who are active based upon the activities of their sports fan or their political party or their favorite TV show or anything like that are stupid. You're correct. Have some perspective, but
you hear that, Pierre? You're stupid. I'm kidding.
It's a series of simple questions. What do you hold important in your life? Sports. I enjoy sports to a great degree. Okay. Is there a particular sports is a competitive situation, and it's to a certain degree divided up in flavors, categories, subsets. In England and the rest of the world is mostly geographic. It's not so much geographic for us because we don't have teams that come and leave the league like they do in England. So your city is there or isn't. It's more what's your favorite team? Well, for whatever reason, I liked their colors when I was little. It's my family's team. I'm from that city. I worked at that stadium, whatever it is. But you identify with a team or two or 12 in Dan's case, and you hold that team up and you hold it to your heart if you're a sports fan. And when they do badly, you feel badly because you want to see them win. And when they do well, you celebrate because you've been through the highs and the lows and the middles with them. So when you get to that high, you've invested the pain. You have the right to celebrate the joy. I think that's where it is.
Well, so I get that, and I agree with you.
There's the team on the field, and then there's the administration around them, the coaches, and then there's the trainers and the staff, and there's the office staff, and there's layers that make up any organization.
They trick into giving them money.
There's layers that makes up any organization, but the outside layer, still in orbit and still important to the team, are the fans, at least the core fans that are with them for good reasons, dumb reasons, because sports is not important, ultimately speaking, in a material world, but for culture reasons, and you're there consistently in and out. I think that is a fair we.
I get what you're saying, and I've been a part of those highs and lows before. Like I said, I grew up in a Packer house, but I've never felt comfortable saying we because I'm not on the field. That's just I will support them. I love them to an extent. I love Aaron Rodgers, but
So
I would never feel. I almost feel like I would be disrespecting what they do by saying we because I am not putting in anywhere near the effort they are. I will support them and I will be happy when they win, but I don't feel right taking credit for that. I feel like that diminishes what they've done when you have millions of people taking credit for something they've never set a foot on the field, never
Hmm.
spent a day catching a pass, anything like that.
So for the podcast listeners, Jeff is wearing a Blues hat. I'm wearing a Cardinals shirt, and so we're all three from St. Louis, and we have lived here for a large part of our time. I moved here in '83. My dad was a big hockey fan in general, and he was quick to jump on the Blues bandwagon. The Blues at the time had never won a Stanley Cup, but they had the most consistent performance in the postseason. Consistent presence in a postseason of any sports in Major League American sports. And that only stopped in the 2000s where they started being a really bad team.
Post lockout.
Yes. So I was raised to be a certain degree a Blues fan, and hockey in general, it's a sport for middle-sized white boys. So there's some affinity there. So you like it and you go see the games and you want them to succeed. There's not a better story in sports at a team level than what the Blues did last year, going from last to winning the Stanley Cup. And it's emotional, and you didn't expect it to see coming. It was one hell of a ride to go on. And I remember watching the night that they won, and it wasn't a foregone conclusion that they would win. Boston is a great team last year.
No, yeah.
And that was a touchy game. But when you got into the late second period and you get into the third period and they're just going to win. And I got about halfway through the third period and they were by a couple of goals, and it was very unlikely that Boston was going to come back. And you're still on your edge of your seat and you still don't want to say anything. But I turned to my wife, who was crying, and said, Jenny, they're going to do it. I didn't say we, I said they did it. They're going to do it. First time ever. So I get your point, but I was emotionally invested in that win. And
you can be. You should be.
That right.
I agree. You're allowed to be invested. I think you should be, but it's the specific we that because you didn't do it, they did it. That's and it's really just grammatical at the end of the day. But
I will say this: I was very invested in the Blues winning, but yeah, I did say like, gosh, they're going to do it. I was like, all my life I've never seen this, and they're going to do it. That's how I talk about the Cardinals. I say they, even though I like the Cardinals. Like for me, I love the Niners. Like I'm serious. Like I freaking
I know.
love the Niners. To the point to where like, look, I use we. I have my different thing. It doesn't really. It bothers me when people use we when I know they're bandwagon fans. That's where it bothers me because I'm like, I know you were just rooting for somebody else here just last year. Like that right there will just drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And really like it. Honestly, it is just a grammatical thing. Like this is from the household with my sister. I said y'all once and got slapped in the face. Like it is literally just a grammatical thing. But anyway, I'm done. That's the end of that.
Oh, who's this we? All right, I think we're done, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button. Thank you for listening. This has been episode 11 of season 1, Shit Show in Motion. And we'll see you next week, hopefully, unless we get lazy. I'm out.